Hi, friends. Welcome to Becoming Unbound, the podcast where we explore what it means to live a life unbound. I'm your host, Carly Butler, and every week we'll be diving into stories and conversations about breaking free from whether it's societal norms, discovering your true purpose, and creating a life that just truly feels free, whether it's personal freedom, professional growth, spiritual awakening, or financial independence. This podcast is all about embracing your messy, raw, beautiful journey to becoming unbound. So, becoming unbound means stepping into the unknown, letting go of the limitations that hold us back, and creating a life that's authentically ours. It's a journey of courage, resilience, and transformation, and I am so honored to share it with you. So, let's dive right into our conversation today. Welcome to the first episode of Becoming Unbound. I'm Carly Butler, and I am so excited that you are here and that I'm here, and we are going to begin this journey together. So, this podcast is all about sort of the pursuit of freedom, the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of freedom, whatever you want to call it, the kind of freedom that inspires you just to break free from whatever's holding you back and step into that life that feels authentic, purposeful, entirely your own and your own journey. So whether it is breaking away from that 9-to-5 job that is just holding you down, or that relationship, or that mindset, I am here to hopefully empower you and to share stories about how you can do that, how I have done that, how others have done that, and just go from there. It's all about the conversations. And I truly believe that if we hear from others and their stories, it can help us to shed light on different parts of ourselves and take on the next part of our journey. Let me start off by just sharing a little bit about myself. So I was a teacher for 10 years. I went to teachers college to be a teacher. From the moment I think I could play with my friends, I was always playing teacher. Felt like I was meant to be a teacher forever. And I loved it. I loved working with kids, building relationships with families, and creating classrooms where children felt safe and seen and excited to learn. And honestly, teaching was more than just a career. It was my entire identity. And I poured my heart into it. I went all out. Every single aspect of my life was teaching and just enriching the classroom and the lives of the children that I got to meet. And that was everything for me. And I still am so grateful for the connections that I made and the incredible families that I had and the inspiring teachers that I worked alongside. And honestly, the children who sometimes I feel like they taught me more than I taught them. So this was what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. And now I have retired. Everyone said that teaching and retiring from teaching was going to be the best thing ever. And it turns out it is. No, I'm not walking away with the pension that was promised to me and the beautiful retirement. But here we are nonetheless. I am a retired teacher and now turned podcast manager. So it just made so much sense for me to have my own podcast. And so this was how Becoming Unbound was born. I sort of started to feel over my teaching career, and there was always moments of this throughout the 10 years, but it was like there was this subtle pull towards something. Not more. Teaching could have been all what I did. It could have been my forever career. It usually turns out to be people's forever career. But for me, there's always this something in my heart that was almost like a quiet voice just whispering, what if there's something else? What if there's another way? And as I was navigating my career and moving through different versions of teaching, that voice kind of got louder and louder, and it just felt like one day I just had to listen to it. And I had taken some time off of teaching. I had tried to incorporate other things into my life. Like I started my teaching career off in Vietnam, which was amazing. I spent 2 years there at a beautiful international school, and wow, that was an experience of a lifetime. I traveled all over Southeast Asia during that time, and it afforded me, honestly, such a life there of travel and luxury and meeting other expats and learning another way of life. It just opened up my eyes to everything. Then I became a yoga teacher and infused that into my career. And I ended up working for Lululemon in Australia after that. Like, it was just my teaching career, and like the different paths that I have walked has been truly remarkable in the last 10 years. It's incredible. But again, there was always that little voice that was like, okay, this is great. And what if there's something more? And on top of that, it also brought me to a point of exhaustion. Like every single day, I started to feel this sense of like depletion, and like it's almost like I was pouring from this empty cup. I remember coming home and um I told my roommate, like, just as I was navigating kind of I'd finally become like a full-time teacher. I had this role, and it seemed like I told her, I was like, I can't speak to anyone after I come home from a day at work. Like, I would lie down on the couch and just like, she would want to talk and chat with me. And then I was like, honestly, girl, like, I just don't have the mental capacity to have or even hold a conversation. And I just remember coming home at the end of the day and laying on the couch and just having to like shut my eyes and dissociate because I couldn't handle one more conversation or one more pull of my energy. And it was a lot. And I felt this over time, and it kept kind of building. And yeah, I realized that I wanted a life where I had the energy for myself and my future and the things that lit me up. And it just felt like maybe that wasn't going to happen. And so that was kind of a big realization for me. And through that, like through my 10 years of teaching, it's been amazing. I've always been like a hustler. I've always had a side job, whether it was, teaching yoga on the side. I took a beautiful yoga teacher training here in Toronto. I was a tutor. Oh my gosh, what else? Oh, I also worked for an organizing company. Like, I was just always, it felt like always side hustling, but it also felt like I was also trying to find this life that was in just more alignment with me. And there was always this sense of like, well, what if I left teaching to do this? Or what if I left teaching to do this? Like, that voice was always like, well, you could be a professional organizer, or you could be a professional yoga teacher. Or there were so many different parts of my life where I was like, just what else is there? And one of, I think, the biggest questions that ended up happening closer to the end, and then I realized almost in my last 2 years of teaching, was that I didn't know who I was outside of teaching. Like, it was such a part of my identity. Like, Carly Butler is a teacher. My friends knew that of me. My family knew that of me. Even like strangers, I would like meet people and I'd be like, yeah, I'm a teacher. And like, it just painted a story for me. And like, that was all I needed to say, was just, I'm Carly Butler. I'm a teacher. And that was kind of it. Oh, and I'd throw in like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher too. And that was great. But then it was like, who am I? Like, I dress like a teacher. I act like a teacher. I sing songs like a teacher. And like, that was who I was. And so I began this wondering, and I was like, what? And this seems kind of silly, but like, I started to think like, what would I dress like if I wasn't a teacher? What would I do on the weekends if I wasn't a teacher? Like, what would I do with, like, how would I think? How would I plan my years? What would I do? So these were the questions that I started asking myself. And then it kind of came to this point. Well, and I had a few points before this. So another one of those pivotal moments was that I had to leave the school board. So leaving the school board, like, was a huge, huge monumental shift for me, because throughout my whole life, it had just been a process of like becoming a teacher, going to teachers college, getting the experience away, getting into the school boards. And if you are a teacher, like, what it's like to try to get a teaching role. And especially at that time, it felt like it was a little bit saturated. It's not that way anymore, unfortunately. I feel like more and more teachers are leaving the system. And so I had to decide to leave the school board. It was just something that it was just the right timing. Like, it was 2020. There was a lot happening in the world. We tried online teaching. We tried going back into the schools. Like, it felt like there was a huge shift going on. And that was kind of my signal to make the jump. And honestly, it was like walking away from this like promised land of a pension and retirement. And like, obviously there's the summers off and the holidays, but it was also about leaving behind this role of like me being a teacher at the school board. Like, this was my big goal. This was, if I was checking all the boxes to do the right thing, this is what I would do. Is I would go to school, I would get the degrees, I would work for the school board, and then I'd be set for life. And like, I would have the benefits and the structure in my day. And like, that was what seemed like the promised land. And then I was almost there. And then I got to it and I was like looking around. I'm like, I I don't know if this is where I belong for the rest of my life. And that was the time where I needed to make a choice, and it was hard. And people all around me were like, "But you're so good at it. Like, you're so amazing." And the feedback just made it even harder to let go. But I just had this knowing. I just had that voice just kept calling to me. So I listened, and I tried to switch things up. So I ended up working at a pod. During that time, there wasn't a lot of in-person learning. So I ended up getting hooked up with a company that was putting that together for a bunch of small families. And yeah, we worked at a pod. It was amazing. Eventually in this episodes coming up, you will hear from one of the parents that was part of that pod. It was such an amazing experience. I'm so excited for that conversation. And I think in my new iterations of trying to figure out what else was out there, like the alternative sort of space for education, even that, like, I would say that I ended up in the end at a brick and mortar school that was essentially, for me, like, it was the freedom school. Like, the values aligned. The kids were meditating. We were, practicing and preaching Joe Dispenza. Like, there was it was everything that I wanted to do. The food was holistic and healthy, and everything was aligned. Like, on paper, that school for me was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. And so even then at the end I was like, perfect, this is going to be great. Again, I'm going to keep trying out the different roles that I could take on. And then as I stepped into that, it dawned on me again, that voice just picked up and was like, this is aligned. And what else is there? Like, I was still feeling, I'm going to call it shackled. I was still feeling shackled. I had stepped away from the school board, made a huge leap, went into alternative education, and yet there I was sitting there at the end of the day, still feeling exhausted, still feeling burnt out, anxious, still feeling like I was shackled to this like 9 to 5 thing. And so many people around me, including myself, was like, well, it's not 9 to 5. It's oh wait, it's just 8 to 4. It still is Monday to Friday. I'm at the school that aligns so much with me, and yet I still feel this sense of burnout and of this this understanding that this still wasn't quite where I wanted to be. So as I sort of leaned more into the idea of freedom, financial freedom, freedom to create and explore, I started to sort of figure out, like, what if I could leave this all together and actually create a life that was on my own terms and become my own boss, use my time that I was pouring into the classroom and into report cards. What if all of that energy could go towards me? Because right now I'm exhausted. I'm still coming home, laying on the couch, disassociating from the entire world. I wasn't able to take care of myself. Like, it just all of a sudden was like, wow. And one of the moments I realized, I was standing in the middle of the classroom and I'm looking around, could see all these beautiful children, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet. And I'm not my best self. Like, if I was a parent, knowing that the teacher of my children was feeling burnt out, ready to cry multiple times in a day, going home to disassociate from life, I wouldn't want that person to be my child's teacher. Like, in all honesty, like my fuse was shorter. My patience for them was like, I could just tell. And I brought it in, and I was always conscious of it. And I brought this beautiful awareness. And my number one goal was to always make sure the children felt heard and safe, and that they wanted to show up at school and be excited. And so, like, that carried me. But at the end of the day, I was like, okay, I go home and I don't have room for anything in my life. I don't even want to cook dinner. I didn't want to go to the gym. I would have to push myself so hard. And then I would be doing the things for, 4 weeks. I would try it out. I'd go to the gym in the morning or go to this and cook all my homemade meals. And then I would just be burnt out. And this cycle of burnout just kept coming over and over again. And I kept trying all different ways of doing it. And it just still felt like this was not the best alignment for myself. And in a school that was the most aligned. So there was these big, huge kind of holes in my theory of what it would look like to have this sense of like freedom. And although I was teaching that to children, I wasn't doing that for myself. So this is where the idea of working for myself, working from home, becoming my own boss, and understanding that I could sort of take back the control over my own schedule and my own autonomy, bring that energy back into my own being, and pour all of that into something that was my own vision and my own sort of understanding of the world, and maybe even be able to share that. And so that's where podcasting came in, because I had originally landed in the social media marketing world. Online, anything online really just stuck out to me. So that was kind of where I landed. And then podcasting was actually kind of gifted to me. It almost felt like God came down and was like, here you go. Like, this is an idea. It aligns with what you want to do. And here you go. So that was a beautiful, beautiful gift. And honestly, shout out to my life coach, Kayla Betts, who literally I spoke it out into the universe. And this is one of those key things that we'll talk about more on another episode, but I spoke it into the universe. I said, I am looking for a job that is X, Y, and Z to align with my values. I had done a lot of work just understanding who I was as a person and like what I wanted for my life, how I wanted to feel every day, and like really getting clear about that. And side note, the school that I worked at, it was amazing. We did these, we called them incantations, but really they're just like, they're affirmations that you would say to yourself. And then we would say them every day with the kids. And part of it was like, what I want is important, and like, I am limitless, and all these things. And one of the things that I have walked away with was that those affirmations worked on me. I feel they worked on me too, because all of a sudden it was like, hey, what I want is important. Like, I am love. I am abundance. I am limitless. Like, I can literally do whatever I want. And all of a sudden, those things that I was teaching to the children all of a sudden started to have a serious impact on me. And then it was like, yeah, okay, let's go. Like, I am ready to figure this out. So that was just a side note. And so I started to look into this. I was gifted podcasting. And then all of a sudden I started to feel this like shift inside of me. And I was like, wait, my whole background is like, I come from an entrepreneurial background from my grandfather, my dad, my aunt, like everybody in their family. My mom even at some points had her own business. Like, I come from a background of people who started their own businesses from nothing. And it felt like all of a sudden I was like, wait, like, if I take everything that I've learned from my family and I take everything that I'm already really good at, combined with my love of storytelling and organization and connection and listening and cheering people on. I mean, I used to cheer on like 5-year-olds, but now I cheer on human beings and their voice and getting their voice out there. So then all of a sudden podcast management just felt so natural. Like I just started to become obsessed. And I started educating myself and diving into podcasts and entrepreneurial resources and coaching programs. And slowly but surely, I began to build this new chapter. And it definitely wasn't without challenges. So leaving the security of my 9 to 5 was terrifying. There was a couple of terrifying moments in that, like leaving the school board and then going into alternative education, heck, even moving to Vietnam by myself for 2 years with a teaching contract, knowing one person of a friend of a friend. Like I'd done a bunch of scary things. So I had kind of already stacked that evidence that I could do some scary shit, and then I would move on and I would be okay and I would be a better person because of it. So yeah, it was terrifying, but I'd heard someone tell me who this is because I don't know who it is, but they said that in your life there are moments where you feel like you are going to like literally shit your pants, and those are the moments where you're excited, nervous, anxious. Like those are the moments where if you're not doing stuff like that on a regular basis, like are you living? So this was my moment. I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely very scared of all of this. This means I have to do it. And honestly, I questioned myself. People around me questioned me. They were like, "What? You're going to leave like this job that you were so close to getting?" Like I was so close to getting the permanent role at the school. I'm convinced now looking back that the permanent teacher role that like people work so hard for, like I left the year that I could have applied and got that. So people around me were like, you're just about to enter like the promised land. Like you got to the gates of the promised land of teaching and you're standing there and I'm like walking away." So that to me and to people around me, they were like, "Well, are you sure?" I was like, "I don't know." But every time I went to go think of like staying, the answer was so clearly shouting at me, no. So all of those moments of walking away from what I thought was going to be um like the promised land, it really prepared me for this. And so now I can tell you, after taking the leap of faith and doing the thing, I have uncovered a life of honestly true freedom over my time, autonomy, how much money I can make, how much I can socialize now, the abundance of energy. Just that alone in my life is so powerful. And honestly, now that, every time that I, help a client share their story or launch a podcast and impact others and help people get their story out there and have other people listen and stoke the fires of these incredible conversations, I am so filled with a deep sense of purpose. And it truly just, it reminds me every single time as to why I take the leap, and the things that I am able to do with my clients is truly incredible. And although like there are moments where I'm like, oh, I miss like the energy and the laughter of the children, I feel like that's still going to be a part of my life in one way or another. That's how I knew that podcasting would be the thing for me, and helping others to create podcasts for themselves, because I had always listened to children and helped them have their stories brought to life. And I would sit there and listen to 6-year-olds try to tell me their stories of their weekend. And I just eyes lit up, fully aware and present with them. I'd be like, yeah, like, yes, whatever it is that you're telling me, like I'm in it. And so I knew, I was like, I'm already so great at this. So listening, editing, helping people bring their ideas and stories to life, like this is what I can do. And so in this podcast, I'm going to be, and we are going to be exploring what this means for others, for you. If you have friends, I mean, share this around. We're going to explore what it means to create a life of freedom, and what happens after you take that leap of faith, or what happens right before you're about to take it, that leap of faith to completely change your life. And whether that is to leave the relationship that's holding you back, or leave the 9 to 5, or even like just start something and have the 9 to 5, or whatever it means for you on an individual level and as a collective. This is what we're going to be exploring, is learning how to live an unbound life, whatever that might look like, because freedom is there's so many different definitions of it. And so I am so excited to start exploring these concepts with you and bringing on guests, entrepreneurs. I mean, parents of children that I've taught are coming on, my spiritual guides, friends, and people at all stages of their journeys. And honestly, we are going to take a deep dive into what it means to break free, dive into personal growth, even if it feels scary. And if you are looking at the darkest parts of yourself and others or the collective, like, we're going to look at it all and see where the light is, because I promise you, on the other side of this, there is a light, and I found it, and it's not without its challenges, but I honestly promise you that, like, if you're thinking about doing it, just do it. I mean, plan. Trust me, in my journey here, there was a great deal of planning and understanding my values and understanding where I could go with this, and research and developing myself and my skills. Like, it's not easy, but I am here to inspire, empower, and chat about all of the above. So this podcast is really about celebrating the messy, raw, unfiltered path to freedom. And it's reminding you that stepping into the unknown and into the dark is scary. It's so terrifying. You have no idea what's going to come out on the other side of these things. And I can say, and I forget who said it, but like, the journey of entrepreneurship and doing something different from the norm, like, it brings out this sense of personal growth that you didn't even know was possible. And I can tell you, like, I have learned so much about myself, but on the other side of that fear is light, is clarity, and the life that feels true to you. Before I sign off on my first solo episode of Becoming Unbound, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of the families and the children that I have worked for over the years. Thank you so much. You have shaped me in ways that you will never understand, and that I don't even know if I can ever fully express. To all the people that I met in my teaching journey into that phase of my life, like, I carry those lessons with me every single day. And to my listeners, I hope this podcast inspires you to take your own leap of faith, whatever that looks like for you, and to truly live an inspired and unbound life. In the episodes to come, we're going to hear from people who have redefined their lives, those who are just starting out on the journey, and everybody in between. We're going to talk about all sorts of freedom, personal freedom, professional freedom, spiritual freedom, and beyond. And my hope is that these conversations spark something in you and remind you that you are not alone. So thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. If you're, whatever you're listening to, give me a like, a share, a subscribe, leave a little review if you like, and let's do this. Let's become unbound together.